Anyway, I'm presenting from my home in Edmond, where we have 4 dogs and 2 girls home from college to self-isolate or whatever this is called. And so I guess, I don't know, every time we hear a dog bark or see someone walk by the shot in pajamas, we'll take a drink of coffee or something to make it fun. I don't know. So there are a lot of opportunities in this presentation to visit with each other in the chat. I'm going to depend on Brad to kind of monitor the chat so that I can keep this slides in full screen. So I look forward to hearing how we all engage with each other. I'm going to enable the closed captions, Brad, unless it's a distraction. So let me know if you want to turn those off. They don't stay live with the slides, but I think they will be caught in the recording. So if you want those off, feel free to let me know. All right, so anyway, good morning. I'm glad to be here with you all, and I want to thank you for taking the time to stop by. This slide shares a formal session description. Lessons from the field means mistakes that I have made. Where we can go as a system means how we can work together to help each other and our students. Harnessing current resources means working with what we already have. And future opportunities, well, it'll be exciting to see what comes our way out of all this, won't it? Since our overall goal is to envision where we can go as a system, this session will probably be most beneficial to all of us as a dialogue. Jump in with questions, comments, clarifications, challenges, and/or suggestions. And here at the beginning, let's take a minute to break the ice and let everyone find the chat window. Drop your name in the chat and tell each other hello. And I am gonna, along with this, I'm gonna minimize and see what happens if I open up the chat window. I see we're chatting with each other. That's outstanding. But everybody can see the chat window open on my
session today.
Good. We'll talk to each other, and everybody can see the chat window on my screen now, right? So if I open it, it's kind of a distraction.
We actually do not see the chat window on your screen, Kathy. We just see the web browser window that's out of presentation view.
Oh, marvelous. Okay. I might keep that open then. So we'll see. All right. So moving on. Thank you all for playing along and visiting with each other there in the chat. I find it simplest. Nope, I am going to have to minimize it. I find it simplest to think of OER and the opportunities around it in terms of what are OER, why would we use OER, and how do we engage in OER related practices. First today, we'll take just a minute together to explore definitions of OER. Next, we will explore why OER. I think Cheryl Cluyer from the University of Arizona articulates it well in terms of student success, faculty empowerment, and removal of access barriers to education. So it will be helpful to hear the why OER at all of your institutions as well, why you engage in it at your university. Finally, we'll discuss strategies about how best to draw on the strengths of our institutions to develop collaborations and partnerships positioned to incorporate OER to optimize students' learning experiences. OER and open practices are all about sharing and collaboration, the ability to reuse and customize resources and ideas. Please continue to share and collaborate throughout our time today. It is so bizarre to not see any faces or hear anything. So I'm just going to imagine smiling, happy people, nodding heads, whispering to each other about ideas they have. In the chat, I'd like for you to share your understanding of what OER are. Feel free to chat back as you find others' input meaningful. If you see something you agree or disagree with, something that inspires you, or something you would like to have clarified. And I will let you just kind of moderate that, Brad.
Thank you, Kathy. And I've also declared our other co-chair, Marla Lobley, as a panelist on here. Marla, please feel free to also help moderate the discussion here. Thank you.
Yeah, and it might be helpful if people are sharing some stuff in the chat, maybe go and just share that out so we can all hear it. Folks watching from their phone might have a harder time getting to the chat as well.
Hearing lots of agreement here, Kathy. And again, we do have some people in the audience here that are new to OER.
All right, excellent. Well, let's take a second and then explore some of the definitions. True, of course, to the nature of something rooted in collaboration, sharing, reuse, and customization. The definitions vary. The UNESCO definition is widely accepted, but is still not really considered the be-all, end-all operational definition. The variations in definition really surround the degree to which modification is permitted and facilitated. But if you look at the plain talk definition, that's kind of the gist. And it's not just about the resource, it's also about the relationships and the collaborations, the interaction and the community. Again, I like to root my why OER in student success, faculty empowerment, removal of access barriers to education, quoting Cheryl Cluyer. Let's take a second though and continue sharing in the chat. What is the why which motivates your work in OER?
Kathy, I'd like to actually interject if I can, since I've got talking privileges here.
Anytime.
You know, from my experience, I teach in one of the adult degree completion programs, and I have a textbook in my class that is quite expensive, and it's required because it's chosen by a committee. And I respect the reasons for using the textbook, although I don't know that I'm entirely on board with it. But I've noticed, you know, a trend in my class by having that textbook being that it's an 8-week course, that some students are just not able to afford that expense at the beginning of the semester. I believe that, you know, some students even choose to either drop the class or don't perform as well and have real struggles catching up in the course because they don't have that opportunity to get access on day one to the materials.
Right, and that's certainly something that the research reveals. And as many as a big Colorado study mentioned that as many as 60% of students run into those kind of challenges when it comes to determining whether or not to purchase the textbook. Yeah, what else do we find? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm seeing some other comments here from the chat.
Let's hear them.
Things are already too expensive for students. Again, it's that element of they pay so much for tuition and fees and just general life, especially right now, many of them are losing their jobs. I can't imagine, you know, again, that burden of placing the cost of a textbook on top of them. Yeah, again, decreasing costs, increasing access of learning materials to students, ease of access. The students are the why. Saving students money on textbook, giving a head start and creating a course by seeing what others have done. That's really another blessing, I would say, out of OERs too, is you get that faculty collaboration, that research element there, you know, the organic nature of those materials that get produced. And I know, again, that's something we're going to talk about here, you know, today is we really want to initiate that and light that fire across Oklahoma, you know, harness the expertise that we have here. Students deserve best possible educational experiences, and decreasing removing costs facilitates that. 100% Christina on there. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's fantastic. I hope, is the chat recorded too? Because this shows.
It is, yeah. And I will actually post a separate listing or a document of the chat on here that's anonymized. So yeah, everybody can see the resources and ideas that are exchanged. It'd be very interesting, I think, to build a word cloud out of the chat that's happening here right now.
Oh, and it would show what great educators we have here in Oklahoma and the dedication that they feel towards their students. Yeah, cool.
And again, we got another comment on here, mixing a variety of resources along with making things cost effective for students. You really do have an opportunity with OER to, and again, I think this is a unique approach from higher ed, kind of pick and choose those elements and use the best things that you can find.
Right, and localize it, make it what's relevant in your community and for your students. Yeah, it looks like
we had a great session too this last Friday with celebrating online learning excellence with Jason Stone and some other faculty from OSU OKC. And you know, they do interdisciplinary liberal arts courses, and OER is about the only way that the curriculum in their classes actually works because you know, they have up to 7 different professors that teach from a variety of disciplines. You really couldn't, you know, ask students to foot the bill for a variety of textbooks from those areas. OER just works in some cases.
That's really, which session was that? We can go back and watch the recording?
It
or
was
do you have, if you want to drop the link.
Yeah, okay. It was the Celebrating Online Learning Excellence session from this last Friday. And the OSU OKC Liberal Arts Division was actually one of our winners for the Online Excellence Awards this year because of that initiative.
That's fantastic. I look forward to going back and finding more out about that. Nice. Well, it sounds like we're sharing lots of good ideas in the chat. As we craft how best to articulate why OER, it's helpful to consider our institution's broader why. What is your institution's mission statement? If you need to open another window and Google it, you're welcome to, but I'd really like for you to kind of tap into what that is. Or if you find it for your institution and you want to drop it in the chat so your colleagues don't have to look for it themselves. I'm sure we all have it memorized, but I want you to consider what elements of that we see interacting with student success, faculty empowerment, removal of access barriers to education. Go ahead and share that in the chat or unmute your mic. And I'm excited to hear.
Kathy, I'm reading back up here a comment from Jamie Holmes, who was our former OER chair for the Cole group. I appreciate the perspective she provides here of the why being the freedom to provide the best information for your students, again, based upon what you know that they need. It's that of curation there of you defining those learning objectives and going out and searching for the individual resources to achieve them.
Right, because some publisher in some far off big city doesn't necessarily know what our students here in Oklahoma need. And I also, as we're of course not going to malign the course publishers, but Cheryl Clear also talks about access before the first day, which this week was really the first time I'd heard that, because I know a lot of the inclusive packages tout the advantage of first day access as students get into their LMS and access their class. But with OER, they actually have access before the first day. They've got it the week before. And I think there's, or really, in perpetuity, right? Since it's available. So as soon as they know that's what you're using, they have access to it, as opposed to it being controlled by the publisher or the LMS.
Kathy, I'm seeing a comment here that I find interesting from Dorothy in the chat box, saying she wishes it didn't take so long to locate OER options for a particular topic. Always wind up at 7 or 8 websites. One recommendation I would have on that is use people like you at the institution. Librarians are there and they can really help take some of that time off of faculty on curating those resources and curating quality resources at that. That's what they're trained to do.
Exactly. And who was that?
That was Dorothy Weaver in the chat box there.
Dorothy, what institution are you at? Where are you? Or if you're comfortable saying.
She's at OSU OKC.
OSU OKC. All right, we can put you in. And what's your subject? So see, already we're going full on librarian. I'm sorry, this isn't what we're supposed to do. But right, so you ask your librarians, and they're compelled. It's like an obsession to find you a resource. And typically when I'm partnering with faculty, I really want the content experts, the subject matter experts, to be free to be experts in their field. And then I can bring the instructional design skill, the ability to find the resources, the connections I have with other people. And generally I ask for a copy of your syllabus, just so I can see what you're trying to hit and compare it to tables of contents and other courses. And I'll maybe ask for the textbook that you've used in the past, and throw that in ISBN and find some comparisons. So we have some techniques to really narrow down the search. And then I send my faculty a couple different resources. I try to really pace it, and then they can get back to me and say, oh, that you're on the right track, or oh my gosh, that's completely wrong. And then we kind of use that to filter the resources and hopefully get down to just 1 or 2 for the faculty to really have to take their time to dig through. We value your time and your expertise, and we want you to be able to use it being an expert, not having to wade through a bunch of irrelevant material. Does that make sense?
Yeah, Kathy, I have a comment in here that was just to the panelists, and I think that it's an important concern. Mm-hmm. And again, I hope we don't get too bogged down in the weeds here, but I think this is really great discussion to be having.
Well, and sometimes the weeds are what we need. Yeah.
Yeah, truly, truly. When we ask students to read something online, over half of them don't do it, and less than 10% will watch a video, even if you have a quiz on it. The numbers don't go up by much. And I think for me, one of the things that's changed, and you may be addressing this in a later slide, is things like Pressbooks. It's the opportunity to create a synthesized textbook style experience for students. Mm-hmm. That's kind of, I think we're seeing a little bit of a transition and a new wave of approach to OER that kind of meets that same need.
Yeah, okay, so let's keep that question in mind as we move through these. If we didn't engage a whole lot with the institutional mission statement, I really encourage you to do that at your university, because then when you go to your administration and ask for support in what you're doing, if you're prepared to tie it into the mission statement and say, this is what we're all about, or if you see something happening that's contradictory to your mission statement, you can point to that also. And it really helps them, it gives them what they need to move forward to support you. Okay, so
the 2 words that really, Kathy, stand out to me, just glossing through these mission statements here, are excellence and quality and opportunity. And I think those 3 themes really bleed through what we've talked about here, even in the last couple of minutes.
Yeah, they really do. They really do. So one of the goals of this session is to articulate the benefit of OER beyond cost. but it is an effective hook. These are some direct quotes from some of our students at Oklahoma State University, and I'm just give you a second to read through them and see if any of them sound familiar. And maybe they don't. Maybe only our students. Maybe everybody else's students are just brilliantly happy. But of course, we've probably heard our students say things like this as well. And this is exciting to hear when they think the textbook is good, that they appreciate the supplement that it is to the course. It's easy to read and follow. And there's some pithy statements, as Nicole Allen at Sparks says, students can't learn from a textbook they can't afford. But professors might also say, students aren't even going to know the textbook is any good if they don't open it and read it. So when we communicate with our partners on the campus of OSU, we do acknowledge that it's not always that the textbook is bad. Sometimes it's just student practices. They just don't open it up. And you know, what do you do about that? It is what it is. But we can hopefully make the textbook more compelling and something that they're more interested in digging into. So here are some statistics. You're likely familiar with the books and supplies budget recommended by the College Board. They recommend that students budget about $12.40 per year. But the National Association of College Stores finds students spend significantly less than the suggested budget. And so, you know, you kind of wonder which number is correct. And the findings indicate that it's maybe both. We're not going to try to play this YouTube video, Brad, so you don't need to be worrying about that. I just want to end the slide in case people want to watch it later. The end result is that students are frustrated because of the cost. Faculty and instructors are frustrated because students do not purchase the textbook. I'd like for us to take a second and localize these concerns to each of our institutions. Continue your discussion in the chat as we work through the next couple of thoughts. And this video is an example of a video that the Library Communications Department and our student body produced, trying to surface some of the concerns that students have and the way that they negotiate their way through accessing textbooks so that faculty might have insight into their perspective. It's about 59 seconds long, and they did a really good job if you want to come back and watch it sometime.
I'm loving a comment from Christine Edwards in the chat window here. And I followed this same strategy when I was in college trying to save on textbook costs. You wait until you get the syllabus and really see how much the textbook is going to be used before you make the decision to purchase.
That is exactly right. And in the meantime, then faculty, you've lost what, a week or two of students having the textbooks, or you have, you know, a freshman who are going to buy every textbook, and then they get there and they find, the professor even says on the first day, well, we don't need that $200 textbook. And then what they're experiencing that uncertainty, like Sia mentioned the other day at the beginning of the year. They're not going to go back to the bookstore and return it, or maybe they will, but it's just, that type of thing does not make it easier for our students. I'd like for you to recall, or if you like, scroll back through the chat, remind yourself of the nature of yours and others' institutional mission statements. And again, I keep harping on that because it's what our institutions have determined is important. And the more we can speak directly to that or directly from that, the more successful we'll be in building partnerships and getting support. So this surfaced in the findings of a recent Colorado study. I think this ties nicely into Sia's presentation on bandwidth the day before yesterday, the difficulty of learning in the face of uncertainty. If you didn't catch it, the recording is very worth your while. But anyway, this is not what any of our institutions want, and I'd wager it's not in alignment with any of our institutional mission statements. That 89% of the students who experienced increased stress levels due to textbook costs. This is probably closer to what our institutions want. These statements, also taken from student quotes, indicate relationships, collaborations, and resources which connect to support student success, faculty empowerment, and removal of access barriers to education. So I'd like to ask what other elements of your institutional mission statement can be achieved through the use of open educational resources. The answers to these questions form an important part of your institution's approach to how. Take a minute, let's chat about how else what we know about OER ties into our institutional mission statements. And we didn't spend a lot of time on the definition of OER, so if there are questions about that in the chat, we can address those as well. All right. It's funny that the chat quits popping when we ask mission statement questions. Funny, ironic. But much of the nuts and bolts of the how of OER. Oh my gosh, this is recorded. Brad, can you edit out snotty comments I make? No, they're in there for perpetuity.
Or a
okay.
fee.
All right, I guess that's how we'll know if my admins watch it. Much of the nuts and bolts of the how of OER has to do with licenses, platforms, workflows, etc. I'd like you to drop something in the chat if you want to make sure we save time for that. But I'd like for us to come away with a reminder of the relational, interactive nature of open educational resources and how best to draw on the strengths of our institutions and each other to develop collaborations and partnerships positioned to incorporate OER to optimize our students' learning experiences. And we might just slip right on through these slides if we want, but one of the best ways to share how relationships, collaborations, and partnerships have become central to the OSU Library's approach to OER initiatives is to share with you a bit of our story, lesson learned, and how we continue to move forward. So I'll take a little bit of time with this, but Brad, you feel free to tell us to move along.
I think we're doing okay on time, yeah.
Okay, we definitely want to have time for people to chat. All right, so Oklahoma State University is a 4-year doctoral granting research institution. I think that's the way we say it. Our enrollment is a bit over 20,000, if I'm wrong. Someone put the right number in the chat. Includes about 4,000 grad students and some satellite campuses. Our story began really with an interested librarian, and I want to give some honor here to Dan Chaney, who was a librarian at Oklahoma State University a few years ago, who was concerned about, he was very committed to students, and he was concerned about the impact the cost of commercial textbooks was having on their learning experience, particularly for freshmen. And he set a personal goal to incorporate OER at OSU to such a degree that every freshman student could take at least one gen ed that used an open educational resource. He got wind of OER and worked with Alicia Baker, and I don't know if she's here on this chat, but the two of them partnered to educate, promote, and support campus use and development of open educational resources. And if Alicia's here and wants to toss a little bit more in the chat about this history and this time, she's certainly welcome to. And I don't mean to out her if she's not here or if she doesn't want to talk. But unfortunately, Dan passed away. And fortunately, Alicia graduated and is now serving the state in other places. And the associate dean who oversaw the project moved to Boulder. So at that point, you know, just within a few months, all the people directly involved with the project were absent from campus. And there wasn't necessarily anyone who had, who knew what the plan was to move forward with OER. They had started 7 projects. Some of them were completed. Some of them were just kind of en route. It was a great start. So I'm seeing the chat flash, Brad, if there's something you feel like we should toss in. If Alicia's here and is correcting me, make sure we speak to that. So anyway, okay, so I'll quit. I'll quit drawing attention to that. But my boss created my position, OER librarian, hired me, also hired a scholarly communications librarian, a data librarian, and the stage was set. And let me scroll through a couple of these slides. So we wanted to establish a consistent, scalable, sustainable OER program. And like any good instructional designer, I determined the best way to figure out how to do this was application of the human performance technology analysis that Van Team et al. Recommend. This is similar to an environmental scan or an SWOT analysis. I anchored my analysis in the definition of sustainability as an organization's ability to meet its goals. According to Van Team, whose HPT framework I was using, an organization's goals are best understood in terms of its mission statement, which is why I keep having a circle back around to that. I knew why I felt OER in general was great, but I need to figure out why OER met the goals of Oklahoma State University. And so I centered the analysis, the organizational analysis, in our vision, mission, values, goals, and strategies. And this analysis helped us identify some of the barriers that we were experiencing in our transition to a strategic plan and determine some strategies for success. So kind of the first barrier we found had to do with the intensity of the beginning. It was very definitely a passion project, but didn't have a clearly articulated strategic plan associated with it, which is how many of these types of things start. And so the strategy we identified was to create a systematic strategic plan through which we could scale our endeavor. We tried operating without a plan. We tried living in the passion project, throwing money at it, operating without metrics, operating without any accountability. And we determined that we needed to incorporate each of those into a strategic plan. The second barrier we ran into is probably familiar to a lot of you. It had to do with institutional silos. We had tried library-centered initiatives, which were effective to a certain degree, but in order to progress past the point where we were, we needed to build some broader partnerships. So we did that by following the whispers. I went to, and I still go to faculty meetings, committee meetings, pizza lunches, talk to people on the sidewalk, talk to people when we go work out, just anything we can do to build relationships and find out what's going on places. And then you hear about the fact that music has an OER, tech writing wants an OER, some guy in business is using an OER. And we made it part of our goal to empower centralization. We didn't want to control it, but we want to help bring people into partnership. We want to listen and put our professors in conversation with each other. Some people describe librarians as matchmakers, and that's kind of the role we saw for ourselves, bringing people into the room to collaborate and build on each other's strengths. A third barrier we found had to do with incentive. And so some universities are fortunate to have rolling funds available to provide grants each year. We were not. We have donors who pop up and share things, which is great. And I joke about sometimes we turn over a couch cushion in the library and find some money we can use to fund things, but that's an uncertain way to progress through a strategic plan. So we determined we need to find and identify some ways to incentivize interaction with open educational resources beyond just money. And so we are looking at ways, well, our provost actually has spoken out in favor of acknowledging OER as part of the retention, promotion, and tenure process. And we've got a working group put together to figure out how to make that real at the departmental level. And we're really emphasizing the customizability of the resources, and then Pressbooks as an incentive to jump in there and kind of bring their course build into a textbook so that then it can be shared out with other people. And if other people have found ways to incentivize this other than just money, we would love to. And I say just money, it takes time, right? And money would be the best way to do it. The people doing this deserve more money. But we also live in the real world, and we just still want to support people in entering the space if we'd like to. So,
Kathy,
yes.
I know of an interesting case at one of the community colleges around the metro area.
Yeah.
There's faculty CEUs for things like adopting OER, and those CEUs can count towards like technology purchases for them. So it's an indirect, compensation, but it's really meant to kind of augment the teaching practice by giving them some educational technology tools.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's super. Does anyone else have incentives that they're running into at their universities or they wish were there? Course load. Of course, that's something that people consider. Pittsburgh State University in Kansas, they actually have gotten it written into their contract that it should count towards the service and teaching portion of their retention, promotion, tenure.
Comment from Thomas Horn at OCCC in here. He's currently participating in Title III training where he's getting paid for OER training. Really?
That's awesome. Anyone else? All right, well, I saw it flash.
NSU's Center for Teaching and Learning offers up to $1,000 for development of OER.
Nice. Does anyone, we've talked about like letters of acknowledgement, which is a very weak phrase, but does anyone do that? Just write like a fancy letter that says their people attended an OER session, or a letter acknowledging that they created the OER? Is that useful? Those are some of the things we're kind of looking at, and that's where all of us coming together to discuss our strategies and what's working.
Kathy, one of the things too, as we also go into this summer conversation about a statewide strategy for OER, we can look at doing, because we're going to be developing digital badges for certain competencies, and perhaps OER development should be one of those.
I think that would be great. Maricopa County out in, I'm trying to go to my clock, so out in Arizona, they have an OER certificate that they've created that folks can work through. and
I'm
achieve.
seeing a comment from Amy here in the chat. Where I moved from, they provided affordable learning grants to redesign a course with OER. Amy, would you mind indicating if that was online specific or if that was any modality of course? Because I know that that's one strategy too some departments have incorporated, is if there's an online area of focus, they can sometimes augment compensation for development of online courses.
Oh, that'd be nice.
Our bonus. Yeah.
Whatever we can do to give people really what they deserve for taking the time and expertise to
Amy
engage in
indicated
this.
online and hybrid courses, so I would anticipate that that may be one of those types of models.
Okay.
And Amy actually gave a link there too. I'm going to copy this one over here into the general chat window. For affordablelearninggeorgia.org. The affordable learning websites are very popular, and I forget which area they're operated under, but we used to have one for Oklahoma that went away for some time, but hope to bring back something similar.
Cool. That'll be good. That'll be great, and get us all in one place. So we looked around, we determined, right, that we needed to build these partnerships, and looked around to see who could join in. We scooped up instructional designers, other departments of the library, and just really, it's about sharing. Not many have lots of time. Kind of our approach is everyone can do something. No one person can do everything. No one can know everything, but everyone knows something. See whatever we can do to partner and bring our strengths together and all crowd together in the same little space. And then we also learned that once we build our team, we needed to trust our team. So that's goes without saying, but sometimes is harder to do than to act out. For me, at any rate, maybe the rest of you have an easier time with it, but being able to trust the people that you brought on and listen to their voices really helps strengthen the partnerships. So we also learned to embrace failure, or I did. The original donor did come back, and we were invited to write a proposal to see if the donor would fund more OER publications. The donor opted to fund some other projects, which felt like failure, but then having written the proposal positioned us for a week later when we were invited to apply for a President's Fellows grant, which we did then earn, and we're able to reward some mini grants. So we try to really walk through everything that we do with a sense of appreciative inquiry, celebrating the triumphs and embracing the failures, and looking forward to seeing what great thing is going to come out of what we learn with that. So that's a bit about how we got to where we are and what informs our approach to OER at Oklahoma State and how centered it is in relationship and partnership. I sent out an email yesterday inviting people in the state to share what's going on at their institutions. Those responses are on the following slides. And we'd love to have you please share out in the chat what's going on in your neck of the woods or what you've heard happening elsewhere in Oklahoma. So first, ECU, right? That's your initials, Marla. Is that what you use, or did I type those in wrong? But this is a little bit about what ECU has got going on. And if Marla wants to chat about that, do you want to jump in? I think you have.
Marla actually indicated that she is not able to do audio this morning because of a poor internet connection.
Right.
One thing though that I will say about bullet point number 3 on here, because I have had a little bit of personal involvement on that. Marla reached out to me some time ago to draft a letter of support, and after reading through this grant proposal, I think that they're onto something really great here for the state of Oklahoma. So between ECU, Redlands Community College, and OSU in Stillwater, they're embarking on a grant proposal for IMLS, which is the Institute of Museum and Library Studies, or Science, I believe, to basically develop a quality evaluation tool for OER. And I think that this is a really interesting opportunity, because one of the things that we're really great at, I think right now, as far as OER in higher ed, is pulling resources in that element of curation, you know, getting out there and finding 10 different options, you know, for one single topic. But we don't really kind of go that next level of, you know, how could we get more help or develop a systematic way of evaluating quality with these resources? So that's what they're trying to do, is basically figure out a way to evaluate that. And, you know, this may be stepping ahead too, but that's one of the differences I find even between us in higher ed and K-12, is when K-12 talks about OER, it is a much more curriculum package, systematic, quality focus. conversation from the start where they're looking for a whole system. You know, they don't really necessarily have the option to do the curation of individual materials. So there's an element of quality analysis there that I think that they've figured out. And again, it's going to be great to see what happens with this grant proposal, because I haven't been able to find anything that's occurring like this on the national stage.
Really?
Yeah.
That's good. I didn't, because I know there's been research done that indicates the efficacy of OER as far as learning outcomes, and that's where a lot of the numbers you saw earlier in the presentation come from, and things that have established it as a social justice issue. But I'm glad to see that this is definitely going to fill
Well,
the
and
gap.
one of the other things too, I didn't mention, Kathy, is that element, the quality evaluation kind of how they're approaching it is through lifelong learning competencies. So this framework that may be developed potentially here could be applied through those other tiers, you know, working with Career Tech, Department of Libraries, you know, for traditional lifelong learners,
Yeah.
K-12 and higher ed. So again, OER it's a very broad category, you know, if you want to apply some of these things outside of just where we work.
Right. And you know what, Brad, if you want to take a minute and share what we discovered when we met with Tiffany Neal about the fact that there is a lot of OER activity happening on the K-12 level here in the state. Is that appropriate to share here?
I think so. So K-12 obviously has a motivation to adopt OER, but I think that it's a little bit different than what the conversation is that we're having here. Obviously, K-12 depends upon statewide funding, federal funding to make their operations happen. And anytime that they decide to adopt these OER resources, it really frees up some more of their dollars to invest back into their school districts and into their programs. One of the things too, you know, that we found by looking at the resources that the SDE rep had to show us is again, those lifelong learning principles. I feel like the element of instruction you see come through in those materials in ways that I haven't really seen, you know, even in college textbooks. It accounts for those processes of learning in the way that the texts are written. And again, it's very cheap, very versatile materials, you know, as far as I would say. Does that cover it, Kathy?
Yeah, and I was excited to hear that what they were doing and that they're being very systematic about it, and that we're apparently on the K-12 level involved in a couple of national pilot projects as well. So this is definitely, we're not isolated in higher ed in trying to go against the flow here in Oklahoma or work against what the broader educational system is trying to do. We're very much, I think, aligned with it.
And I think that they are interested in working with us just as much as we are working with them.
Yeah.
You know, if that conversation with SDE is any gauge.
Yeah. Well, it goes back to like the tweet picture with all the birdhouses on the trees. And when we met with Tiffany, she was as excited and surprised to hear about what we have going on with OER in higher ed as we were to hear about what is going on in the state with OER in K-12. And so that we just need to talk to each other. We need to be friends and make time. So, okay, the dog is going to bark a lot because the mailman's coming, and we live on a cul-de-sac, so he comes by twice. So I apologize for that. This next screen, Jen is swamped at OU, and so she may not be here, but this is a bit about what they have going on at OU. And I think clicking through some of those links when you come back and review the slides, as you no doubt will be interesting for you. Does anyone have any questions about what they see on here about Share OK? You know, that Share OK pops up as a topic of conversation a lot in the OER subgroup meetings.
I think it's great that they're having an opportunity to acquire some more staff to support OER at OU.
Yeah. And again, all of that benefits the whole state. Every grant that anybody gets creates materials that are going to be useful for all of us. So did someone pop a question in the chat about OU?
Just a comment that Jen is great. Yeah, Jen is an awesome partner in OER for us.
Yeah, good. Well, we'll make sure she sees that. And then Veronica sent this from SWAZU. And she, along with Jamie at Tulsa, has done a great job of helping get and keep things rolling with OER in Oklahoma. And I don't know, and I hate to keep calling people out without having checked with them. But if you're on the chat and you want to share anything else about OER at SWAZU, we'd love to hear it. In the meantime, what else are we seeing in the chat? What else should we be celebrating? And most of all, where do we think this takes us?
I'm loving this comment in here from earlier. Perhaps we need a statewide match.com for faculty wanting to collaborate on OER materials. And we are looking to develop something like that of sorts. You know,
That's
it's possible, I think, to find that. We just don't have it as easy as I teach here and I want to find this person over here just yet. But I think that that's a good vision for us to adopt.
that is a super idea. And I did email Veronica and ask if her department, so it says in here, she has a department that's invented a template for library dissemination of OER materials for others to copy. I asked her for a copy of that. And so once we get it, I'll share it with Brad, and I guess you can push that out whatever way we determine.
Kathy, we actually have a question in the chat box that I think is good to answer, and
yeah.
kind of goes back to Share OK a bit and the principle behind that.
Mm-hmm.
Again, Susan, I think, typed a little bit earlier too. I saw this comment. She teaches in the area of computer science and has struggled a bit to find resources in that area. And Susan, I will share with you too, I teach Italian and I have not been able to adopt OER in my past years of teaching it because the resources are just not there and I can't get what I've been able to get out of a textbook yet. Again, I think that that just changed recently because somebody produced a new textbook. But is there a central repository so that she could see if there are other computer science teachers that have any OER materials that they are willing to share?
There are several searchable repositories, and I don't know if any of my folks are in this and can dump my LibGuide link in the chat or my library guide in the chat, but OASIS has a broad search guide. A great place to start is the Open Textbook Network, Open Textbook Library. And then also OpenStax. I don't think they have computer science right now, but they have a lot of the other gen eds. But so that's the official answer. But let me tell you for real, how I start a lot of my searches is I just Google, frankly, I Google Hawaii Pressbooks and then the content. Or I Google Indiana Pressbooks and the content. And what's another one that, or Minnesota Pressbooks and the content. Those are some programs that are very strong, and that helps me see things that are in Pressbooks, which are easy to adapt. And also I can generally find out who is using them, who the professor is, and I can dig into that farther and make a personal connection. But also, Susan, if you want to reach out to me, or maybe Brad's got your
Marla and I
number.
just got it at the same time. Yeah,
excellent. And we can, and I'm also working to curate. So you can do a big dump search, like I said, and you end up with so many resources, but there are other ways to kind of curate it. I'm on some listservs with OTN, and that's something we'll talk about maybe here in a minute. And your librarians probably are as well, and they can reach out and say, hey, does anyone have a good resource for this? This is my population, and that's a good way to get something back that someone else is using. So it's just still so networked, it's still so personal and so oriented in relationship. And I'm also working on curating a list of resources by subject that I can tie to particular institutions. So for instance, my organic chemistry professor a couple days ago said, do I know of anything that's in use anywhere? And he doesn't just want one of those dump lists. I've already sent him that. He wants to know something that's in use at a similar university. And so I'm trying to create a list that kind of curates the materials that way. So does that answer the question? Probably way more than she wanted.
No, I think that does, Kathy.
Yeah.
Do you want to say about Share OK?
Okay, I'll share a little bit about my understanding of Share OK, which is so limited. And again, if there's anyone on here that can provide a better explanation of it. But my understanding is that it's a shared platform contributed to and supported by OSU, OU, and UCO. And it's been kind of put forth as an effective repository for OER in the state, but the nature of Share OK is, I think, that it can, DSpace is what the people who know what they're talking about call it. So I don't really know what that means, but that it can hold PDFs, but that's what it does. So like it's a digital file cabinet, and somebody fix it in the chat if I'm saying it wrong. But when we're talking about wanting to produce resources that students can engage with across platforms and in a variety of different ways, one downloadable PDF kind of falls short of our goals.
Yeah.
So that's where it is a good place. And so it's a good place to go look and see if something exists. But then for a lot of the needs that we're hoping to meet, other platforms are going to be more effective. Was that clear?
Kathy, we have another good question in the chat box here. We have an audience member, I believe Amy Thornton, who's new to the state and is wondering if there are any listservs available that would be good to join or tap into the OER network to stay informed about what's going on. And I will say, one of the things I think we should do is use the participant list, because I have everyone's email that's on the call and registered for this, to revamp our OER coal list and really kind of try to see if there are any other members out there that would like to join. And maybe also send out information about joining our Slack channels, because I really feel like we have a great OER discussion that happens there. And for those of you that don't know, Slack is a communication tool that's online, that's used by the Council for Online Learning Excellence, that kind of allows us to chat asynchronously so that we don't have to hold meetings every single time we need to share an idea.
Right.
I think it would be good for us, after this session, and maybe send out some communication and let people know how they can get involved. So.
Well, that sounds great. And that's one of the takeaways I wanted to come up with. Like, how can we help each other? What do we want? Do we want a listserv? Do we want a formal learning community, diversity initiative? What's already happening at your institutions that you can tie into for your institutional OER initiative? What's already happening here in the state that we can tie into? We don't necessarily have to create new things. We just need to piggyback on top of what's already going on and what's going to be most effective for us. And you asked a question that I had. Oh, so the listserv, and in a second I'm going to minimize my slides so I can see the chat. So there are good listservs, CCOER. If you'll Google that, they have a very good listserv and email conversation with robust resources shared and knowledgeable people. And you don't have to have any special qualifications or memberships in order to join that, CCOER. OTN has a very good listserv for people who are members of the Open Textbook Network, which, if I were going to make a plug for choices to be made in the state, I think a consortial statewide membership to that would be great for us. And
That's actually a comment, Kathy, that's shown up here in the chat box from Jessica Cook. Could the state create a platform to share resources or listserv for the state so that individuals don't have to recreate searches? And I'm just going to say point blank, that's frankly the direction that we're headed. We've recognized that there's a need for some sort of a shared hub for us. And Susan actually addressed something I think that follows on that question of why would she need to search for Hawaii before Pressbooks? And it's because there are a lot of different companies out there that offer platforms. Pressbooks is one of those, and you have the ability to customize your instance. So by searching on Hawaii's Pressbooks instance, you may get to see something a little different. Am I mistaken about that, Kathy?
No. And the reason I put Pressbooks in there is just because we have an institutional instance of Pressbooks. And I guess since I'm still sharing my screen, I can maybe navigate to it if I can get out of the, and apologies if something pops up that should not. But we have an institutional instance of Pressbooks that we use. And I think this would also be great for the state if we had a statewide instance of Pressbooks, because it enables us to curate, let's see, I don't want to throw Holly's up there without permission. It enables us, this is where our folks who created things, where we publish them and push them out. I'm looking for the textbook writing one. Well, I don't see it. It must not be in my personal catalog.
Holly says you can use hers.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. So this is one that Holly put together, Holly and Christina, in response to kind of this remote teaching opportunity. We usually do our library instruction face-to-face, but we wanted to still be able to meet our professors' needs in this time. And so this is a little bit of what Pressbooks looks like. And it's interactive. You can put links in here, just about anything that you would want to do. And let me go back to read. This is a very unpolished presentation. I'm trying to get to the home for this book and show you, and again, it exports in a variety of file formats so that the students can interact with it across platforms. And oh, okay, so the second lesson, and so I'll take you back to 12. Oh, okay, so go to the second lesson, 12:13. Yeah, come on, Pressbooks, this is your chance to shine. Where should I go, Holly? Christina did some magic. Which part? Oh, and I'll just put a link to this in the chat, and you can play with it on your own. You don't have to depend on me. Part 2. Okay, so, oh, so it's got some hotspots, some interactivity. Yeah, so dig through there and see what you can do. And so what's great about Pressbooks, and the reason to go back to why Hawaii, why Pressbooks. So if I find a resource that I like at Hawaii that has been put in Pressbooks, I can just clone that book. So like they have a nutrition book that one of our professors wants to adapt. I clone that book into Pressbooks, and now our professor can go in there and just do whatever she wants with it. So it's kind of a shortcut, but it doesn't have to be Pressbooks. There's lots of OER platforms that are not Pressbooks. It's just one that I find beneficial and easy. The reason I Google Hawaii is because I think Billy Meinke out there does great work. And that's a relationship I built and someone I've watched on Twitter, on the listservs, that I really admire the work he does. And so if he has something, I'm probably going to try to borrow that first to kind of inform my search. Do you want me to stop share? Or I don't want to leave everybody bored with this screen. What other questions? So I said the OTN listserv, CC OER listserv, Spark also. If you Google Spark OER, they have a lot of really great advocacy resources that are free. And I'm not sure if it's a membership only listserv or not. I have to say, I think that's ironic when people have a listserv for OER that you have to be a member to join of their organization, but that's a whole different ideological thing. What other questions do we have or comments?
I will say a personal comment for me, Kathy. I highly recommend OER Digest.
Okay.
And one of the most wonderful newsletters, at least for catching up on what other states are doing on this front and kind of keeping up with that national level conversation. I really love reading that.
And how would people join that?
Let me Google it. I think I just found it through Googling.
Okay. And that's what so much of this is, which I guess that's not very librarian-y to keep saying Google things.
Yeah, it's one of Spark's newsletters, actually.
Okay, good.
Sparks.
Kevin, I'm the boss of our Pressbooks. Not really. It's a team. It's partnership, collaboration. Can you see why I had to put on there, trust your team? So what are the questions and comments we have? Let's go back to this last screen, because I'd love for us to come away with at least one next step. One next step you can take at your institution as you consider the resources already available and what's happening. One next step we can take to build OER momentum in Oklahoma, and one next step we can take to help each other and what we can do together.
I would say too, if anybody has any steps that they can think of that you could take, it might be helpful to also include your role so that we can know where you're coming from. And again, from my perspective, coordinating online efforts across the state, I think my goal for this is just that, to increase our community and get more people involved in what we're doing. How often, Kathy? I think we meet about every other month for the OER group on Zoom.
That's what it seems like. What would be helpful for everybody?
Yeah. I know right now everybody's probably inundated with Zoom meetings and hesitant to answer that question, but
yeah. And so do we need just in time? Do we need just in case? Do we need like a central place that people can go to get information and resources? Do you just need to have an email, Angie Morris, an email? So I'll put my email in the chat, and you can email me anytime, and probably whatever you're asking to have found is something I'm already looking for someone else anyway. So I can just, oh, there's a dog.
Kathy, I would say from my perspective, I would like to do some revamping on my own course. I have a little bit of a break between now and summer semester before I start back up in fall. And one of the things that I really plan on doing, and kind of taking stock from Sia's presentation too about bandwidth, and some of the other people that have talked about really scaling and focusing on key objectives, is to look at what I'm doing in my class and those learning outcomes and try to go out and find some more resources for OER. And I think that your LibGuide is a really great place to start, because you've curated a lot of different search engines there, and it's just kind of a good synthesized place. So, I mean, that's one thing easy anybody could do, is just take a syllabus, look up some of those things, and go see where you can find some resources in your own area.
You bet. And I love that you emphasized right at the beginning of this to contact your librarian.
Yes.
Because your librarian very, very likely has a pile of stuff already just dying to have someone ask them a question, and they can help you. No one needs to do all the work. And So he mentioned my guide. Marla also has one. If you just Google OER LibGuide, you will get so many returns for librarian resources all across the nation. And many of them are, most of them are much better than mine. Yeah. Okay. So she's reluctantly agreeing with Jess. Jason is. What did Jess say?
Jess said idea of having an OER quarterly meetup to find out what others are doing. So maybe like a quarterly status check.
Okay. And so what would we want that? Would we want that to be like a, well, face-to-face, which seems irrelevant to even ask now. Good. Thank you, Marla, for putting that in there. Or do we want like a Zoom thing, just like an informal coffee hour, a happy hour?
I mean, I would personally be down for a quarterly Zoom meetup. I think that that would be a good idea for us to keep tabs on what's going on across the state, you know, as people are willing to come and share. We could even obviously reach out to people before those kinds of sessions and say, you know, do you have anything specific that you would like to share?
Okay.
And it might give us an opportunity too for those that are not involved in the regular COLE planning processes with OER to know what's going on within the initiatives as we start exploring some of these platforms.
And I will say, I know in the state, so Jamie put her guide, put the TCC guide, they have got a lot of OER stuff going on. So she's a great one to reach out to. Marla has got a lot going on in the state. Alicia Baker, and what institution is she at, Brad? I can't keep them all straight.
I can't either. Too many.
Okay, so we've got someone, okay, so a virtual meetup. Oh, and that'd be great to include the K-12 teachers. Let's say, Jessica, where are you at? Are you at Cassidy?
And Alicia is at Northeastern.
Okay. Okay, at ECU. Okay,
Angie,
so
I appreciate you, your perspective from adjunct faculty, Angie Morris on the call, because I do think that a lot of adjunct faculty, you know, do care a lot about this and saving money for students, even though we may not have like release time per se, you know, in our schedules to be able to incorporate that. It takes a lot of intention and it does take some time to incorporate OER. And if you're willing to do that, I greatly appreciate that.
very much. Well, this is the last official slide. Well, actually, I had one more. Thank you for joining me. There's my contact information. I should have put that up earlier. Although, as you see, there's so many people in the state to reach out to that are fantastic. And then this is Slides Carnival is a template I used, except for the middle part about Oklahoma State University. That was Christina Calhoun's magic.
Wow, Kathy, it's 11 o'clock on the dot.
On the dot. I saw that. I noticed it was ticking down. I thought I need to let you know that I'm officially finished.
That's great. Well, Kathy, I think that we all have a lot to think about after being on this call today. I'm personally feeling a bit inspired by the group, you know, and the interactions that we've had on here so far today. So I really want to thank all of the audience for taking time out of your day to sit around with us and talk about OER. Because again, I think that signals your commitment to students and understanding the bottom line, that the bottom dollar does affect them. And again, bandwidth, consider again the other session that we did this week. So again, we're going to have some follow-up conversations, I think, and we have a lot to digest from this conversation today. But those of you on the call, expect us to reach back out to you for some further collaboration, in addition to those avenues of how you can get involved, not only with OER, but with COLE OER group and our strategic planning for the state. So thank you all so much. And again, stay safe.